Good Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for joining me for the morning edition extra, and thank you for starting off your morning with Alaska's news source. And starting us off this morning, we have meteorologist Erin Morrison, who is giving us a breakdown over what our weather is going to look like as we head into our midweek and head into the rest of our week, into our weekend. Erin.
Thanks, Adalmi. We are seeing those temperatures steadily climbing at or above freezing across South Central, and we're likely going to see some areas topping out near 40 as we head through the rest of this week. Later this week into the weekend, we will be watching some storms approaching southern Alaska, which will bring the return to some possible snow showers as we welcome in our Saturday on into Sunday. But as far as this morning, we are waking up. Many areas continuing to see those temperatures steadily warming. In fact, Fairbanks and most locations through the interior are seeing one of the warmest mornings we've seen in quite some time. And we did officially close out March as the coldest on record for Anchorage at an average temperature of 13.4 degrees. And to put things in perspective, a typical March in Anchorage ends with an average temperature right around 25.8 degrees. So we were about 12 to 13 degrees colder than what we typically see during the month of March. Now, thankfully, temperatures have been warming. We're going to continue to steadily warm. We'll break freezing later today. Some areas of the coast may actually warm into the upper 30s, if not near 40 degrees. And while we're largely going to stay on the dry side for most of mainland Alaska, we will be watching this area of low pressure, very subtle area of low pressure dropping south across western Alaska. That will lead to some light snow accumulation, nothing significant, maybe an inch or so of that snow accumulation. And that will also keep things fairly cool as we close out the week. But one thing I do want to bring your attention to as we welcome in the weekend and next week, notice this ridge beginning to build in across parts of the state. This is going to continue to drive in some of those warmer conditions, and that is going to continue to lead to those slow warming across a large portion of the state. So this is a system we're going to be watching as we welcome in our Thursday on into Friday, Saturday, and into early next week, which will kickstart another wet weather pattern for southeast. More so in the way of a rain-snow mix. Not widespread by any means. There will be some dry time, but we will see the return to that active weather. And then, of course, by Saturday evening into Sunday, we'll see some of that moisture building into South Central, where we'll see some light snow accumulation. But we do stay dry today. We have plentiful sunshine sticking around for your Wednesday. Thursday, we'll begin to see some clouds steadily increasing. And then by week's end, we could see some flurry activity, but the best chance for snow arrives as we welcome in our Saturday night on into Sunday, with temperatures warming into the mid to upper 30s. You can see Easter Sunday, a high of 38, while Monday of next week, we'll see a high near 40. Adelmi?
Thank you, Erin. And a judge has declared a second mistrial in the case of Dustin Ruckman, the man accused in the 2019 deaths of two Unalaska teenagers. The ruling comes after a jury once again said they were unable to reach a unanimous verdict. Johnson Kuhn was at the courthouse when the decision was announced.
It was an emotional day in court, especially for the families of Carly McDonald and Kiara Renteria Haste. This is now the second time in less than a year they've sat through a trial only to learn it ended without a verdict for another time. Prosecutors say Ruckman was driving a pickup near Mount Ballyhoo in May 2019 when the truck went over a steep cliff. The two passengers, 16-year-old Carly McDonald and 18-year-old Kiara Renteria Haste, died at the scene. Ruckman told police he was ejected as the vehicle went down while the girls remained inside. Ruckman was indicted in 2020 and initially faced a range of charges, but prosecutors later narrowed the case to 2 counts of criminally negligent homicide. The trial was moved from Unalaska to Anchorage over concerns about finding an impartial jury. Last year's jury spent days deliberating but couldn't reach an agreement. And now this retrial has ended the same way, with a second mistrial after jurors said they were still deadlocked.
Based upon where we currently are in this case, the evidence that has been presented, the arguments that have been made, it is my opinion that there is a manifest necessity at this point for a mistrial, based upon their inability to come to a unanimous decision.
The victims' families were very emotional and declined to comment at this time, as did Deputy Attorney General John Skidmore. Ruckman's defense attorney, Julia Mowdy, was unable to be reached for comment. A post-trial status hearing has been scheduled for April 30th to see where things go from here. Johnson Kuhn, Alaska's news source.
The interior is warming up, and while that feels good, it is also weakening ice on a key Fairbanks waterway. Last Friday, Fairbanks ice crews had to rescue a person who fell through the ice on the Chena River. A National Weather Service hydrologist says with river ice can change quickly in these conditions, and thickness can vary from one spot to the next, making any single measurement hard to trust. On the Chena, that risk can be even higher because warmer water runoff from nearby roads can erode ice from below, and the heat from the power plant along the river can also thin the ice. And Senator Lisa Murkowski delivered her annual address to the legislature Tuesday. She's the final address from the federal delegation this session. Alaska senior senator covered a lot of ground in her 45-minute speech, hitting on what she calls wins for Alaska and what the future of the state may hold. Our political reporter Will Courtney has a story.
We get to wake up, we get to work for Alaska, but we also know that's a responsibility and that people are counting on us.
Senator Lisa Murkowski returned to Juneau Tuesday, delivering a speech to a legislature inundated with different priorities. Much of her remarks hit on one major theme: Alaska's future is in an uncertain place.
This is a moment for optimism, and we should take pride in all that's going well. But we should also recognize that this is a time that demands realism.
Alaska's senior senator made national headlines for opposing the Trump-backed SAVE Act. It's a bill supporters say make elections safer, but she says disenfranchises Alaskans.
I strongly agree with the premise that only citizens should vote. The problem here is with implementation.
One topic she did not talk about, the LNG pipeline.
I'm wondering how the Alaska LNG project fits into your work in D.C.
My encouragement to you is to do the homework that you need to do to make sure that this is going to be right, not for one project developer, not just for one administration, but this is going to be right for the people of Alaska going forward.
An issue all the more important with concern over the future of Alaska's economy.
And Alaska will need a legitimate fiscal plan as the federal budget inevitably tightens.
Now passing the halfway point, and with more work than they may be able to handle, Murkowski made it clear the legislature has their work cut out for them.
You're not really approaching the end of session yet, unfortunately. All you need to do is look out the window there and say, okay, we're going to be here for a bit.
Will Courtney, Alaska's news source.
Senator Murkowski also hit on the state of education and how she thinks lawmakers need to move forward with the rural health transformation program. For more on that, we have expanded coverage on our website and our mobile app. Now on to next week's municipal election and what you need to know. In-person voting opened Tuesday at vote centers around town like City Hall, the Lusac Library, and Eagle River Town Center. Voting centers are open Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 and on Saturdays from noon to 4. This is on top of the more than 200,000 ballots already mailed to registered voters. If you expected a ballot but still don't have one, you can call the election center to get a replacement. You can return your ballot by mail with a forever stamp. Use one of those 18 secure drop boxes around town. And that election concludes next Tuesday, April 7th, and half of the seats on the Anchorage Assembly are on the ballot, and that could lead to some significant changes to the Muni. To give us perspective about what this could mean for the balance of power, here is Joe Allgood.
Yeah, let's start with the basics. We've got 12 seats on the Assembly. These are the current members. Each term is 3 years long, and Assembly members are limited to 3 terms, a total of 9 years. Currently, we've got 2 members, Chris Constant in District 1 and Felix Rivera in District 4, who are term limited. So they will not be returning after this election. In addition to that, we've got Scott Myers in District 2, who has decided not to run again, so he's out. And then in addition to that, we've got George Martinez in District 5, Zach Johnson in District 6, and Anna Brawley in District 3, who are all defending incumbents for their seats. Now, we don't have time to go through all the races, so I'm going to zoom in on a few key ones. First, we'll start with District 1. Remember, that is currently being held by Assembly Chair Chris Constant. He's become well known on the dais in his 9 years as one of the more liberal voices on the Assembly. In his stead, our candidates Sydney Scout and Justin Millett. Sydney is generally more progressive and Millett is generally more conservative. So if Millett takes that seat, that would be a major shift for the downtown district. Now we're going to move on to the other more liberal voice on the assembly. That's Felix Rivera. He's term limited, remember. He's in District 4. That's Midtown. We've got Dave Donnelly running against Janice Park. Donnelly, you might remember from the school board or his time as a state legislator. He's more conservative. Janice Park is generally more liberal. If Dave Donnelly wins that seat, that would mean it's almost a conservative majority on the assembly. And then finally, we're going to move on to the last race I want to zoom in on, and that's District 3. That is currently held by Anna Brawley. Now, she's not term limited, but she is being challenged by candidate Brian Flynn, who she already ran against in 2023. If Flynn wins, along with the other conservative candidates we've already talked about, that might mean the assembly would be leaning right, which would be a major shift from recent years. Ballots are still open until April 7th. After that, we'll see what it might mean for Anchorage's legislative body.
And a seemingly sudden increase in fur seal deaths near St. Paul Island has left both researchers and locals stumped. Now it seems they've figured out the cause. Jace Bertrand spoke with a federal researcher about how a toxin produced by algae is threatening Alaska's marine life and why it's a warning for humans too. Excuse me 1 second, that is not the right video. Okay, here is the correct video.
No cuts, no scratches, no sign of physical trauma to the body. But fur seals, such as the one pictured, have been found dead, washed ashore on St. Paul and St. George Island, prompting the question, what could be the cause?
There's certain types of algae in the marine environment that can produce neurotoxins, potent toxins that are harmful to humans and marine mammals and fish and birds.
Dr. Kathy LaFay with NOAA says the deadly saxitoxin could be coming from algae blooms infiltrating the seal's feeding habitat.
Toxins that they produce are becoming more prevalent in the food web with the warming ocean conditions and loss of sea ice.
In August 2024, 10 bodies washed ashore.
We have never had such a well-documented saxitoxin poisoning event in marine mammals, especially in this region.
She says animals, such as walruses, come in contact by eating contaminated clams, but finding the deadly source for fur seals isn't easy.
If an animal were to be impacted by saxitoxin, or even a human with shellfish poisoning, it's going to cause paralysis of the respiratory muscles, etc. And if you're at sea, you would probably just suffocate and float off and not be seen.
The concern extends to the effect on people, as marine life provides for food and culture in the region.
There are programs that test seafoods for these toxins for commercially available shellfish and seafood. They don't have that same service for subsistence harvested or, recreationally harvested seafoods.
Knowing the dangers is one thing, but prevention?
It is nature. It is its own thing. We can't control it.
However, LaFay does point to warming waters and climate change as a root cause, with a promise to continue research and the monitoring of marine health in Alaska. Jace Bertrand, Alaska's news source.
And we are going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some national stories that have been trending. So stick with us. We'll have those stories when we come back. Well, welcome back in. CENTCOM posted on X Tuesday night that precision munitions were dropped deep inside Iran to, quote, further degrade the country's ability to project power in meaningful ways beyond its borders. Now, here's a look at the video released. More than 3,000 people have been killed across the Middle East since Operation Epic Fury began in Iran. Israeli and American strikes have killed more than 1,900 people, according to the country's deputy health minister. At least 1,200 people have been killed in Lebanon and 19 have died in Israel. Additionally, 13 U.S. service members have been killed and 2 more died of non-combat causes. A U.S. official familiar with operations say a total of 348 service members have been injured. And the financial cost of the Iran war has gotten the attention of President Trump. Alaska's news source White House correspondent John Decker breaks that all down.
Operation Epic Fury has cost roughly $35 billion in the first 5 weeks of the conflict. That's averaging $1 billion a day. And the U.S. is now looking into getting America's allies in the Middle East to potentially foot the bill. The Pentagon says the reason for the high financial costs can be attributed to high-intensity missile strikes and the deployment of naval and air assets to the region. Those soaring costs prompted me to ask this question at the White House press briefing.
Back during the Persian Gulf War, 1990, 1991, Arab countries paid for the vast majority of the cost of the war. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. Who's paying for the cost of this war? Will those Arab countries step up to do just that?
Well, I think it's something the president would be quite interested in calling them to do. I won't get ahead of him on that, but certainly it's an idea that I know that he has and something that I think you'll hear more from him on.
And with the Strait of Hormuz essentially shut down, it has severely impacted American truckers.
The cost of diesel is averaging at $5.38 a gallon right now. What's the message from the Trump administration to truck drivers who are dealing with those high fuel costs right now?
Yeah, we understand, we hear you, we see you. We are fully tracking this short-term fluctuation in oil and in diesel prices. And that's why the president and the administration have continually announced robust actions to provide stability in the global energy market.
Diesel prices are now up 50% compared with the same time last year, and that's hurting trucking profitability. While larger carriers can impose fuel surcharges, smaller carriers typically can't. And with thousands of dollars in additional fuel costs, that's hurting their bottom line. At the White House, I'm John Decker.
President Trump said Tuesday the U.S. could be done with its war with Iran within 2 to 3 weeks. He added it's possible the war will end sooner than that if a deal is reached. Speaking from the Oval Office, he said his one goal of the war had been attained, that Iran will no longer have nuclear weapons, will have no nuclear weapons. Trump reiterated that reopening the Strait of Hormuz should be the problem of other countries, saying it'll be up to them to secure the critical waterway. And a Supreme Court ruling Tuesday allows a religious counselor to challenge Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for gay and transgender minors. The decision doesn't strike down the law, but it does send the case back to the lower courts. That's a blow to LGBTQ advocates. Justice Ketanji Jackson is the only dissenter. Her liberal colleagues say they joined the majority because they see the ruling as narrow. And now here is our very own John Thompson speaking with our Washington correspondent Emma Wolfers on what is happening in the government that you need to know.
Well, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave an update on the war in Iran, leaving the possibility of a ground invasion on the table. Alaska's news source Washington correspondent Emma Wolfers joining us now from D.C. Emma, what did Secretary Hegseth and other U.S. military officials have to say?
Well, John, this was our latest briefing from the Pentagon in about 10 days, and Hegseth insisted while the fighting drags on, peace talks are continuing with a new regime. The defense secretary was back. He was in the Middle East over the weekend, meeting with troops who were deployed to Iran. Now, amid these claimed negotiations, Hegseth says military leaders have not ruled out possibly putting troops on the ground. He said you cannot win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do, but again, said they have left all options on the table. Now, President Trump Tuesday evening during an unrelated White House event when answering questions about Iran by reporters said that he believes the U.S. could be done with the conflict in 2 to 3 weeks, but added it was possible that he would make a deal before then.
Well, Emma, the conflict, as it continues, I think one thing is for sure, global oil prices are still soaring. President Trump, does he have a message surrounding the global oil supply?
Yeah, John, on social media Tuesday, the president once again encouraged other countries to get involved in this war. He said nations which can't get fuel right now should take control of the Strait of Hormuz and learn to defend themselves. You are absolutely right. The prices are still really high. Brent crude, the international standard, hovered around $107 a barrel. That's up more than 45% since the start of the war on February 28th. And the closure of the strait has sent the average price for a gallon of gas here in the U.S. over $4, its highest point since 2022. That's more than $1 up from where it was before the war. Now, Trump directed blame at U.S. allies like the United Kingdom and France, who have refused to enter the war. President Trump said, quote, "The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil," end quote.
All right, let's talk Supreme Court. There was a ruling against a Colorado law banning conversion therapy in the state. I'm sure a lot of folks don't know what conversion therapy is. What's the significance of this decision?
Well, this could be a major setback for LGBTQ plus rights, John, as nearly 20 states that ban conversion therapy will now have to reevaluate their own laws. This case centered around a Christian counselor who does not treat LGBTQ plus youth. She claims her free speech was violated because she was not allowed to dissuade struggling teens from changing their sexual orientation or identity under Colorado's ban on conversion therapy. Now, 8 of the 9 justices Tuesday said she was right. Neil Gorsuch, who wrote the majority opinion here, said Colorado's law not only bans physical interventions, it also censors speech based on viewpoint. There was a lone dissenting opinion that came from Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. She said, quote, "First Amendment principles have far less salience when the speakers are medical professionals," end quote. Conversion therapy has been denounced by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychological Association, and the American Medical Association. And research from those finds the practice can lead to increased rates of suicide.
And finally, Emma, a judge ordered the Trump administration must stop construction of a new ballroom. Can you tell us about that? And this is unless Congress approves the construction. What more can you tell us, Emma?
Right. This district judge here in D.C. granted a preservationist group's request for a preliminary injunction. It would temporarily halt President Trump's $400 million White House ballroom project. The judge here wrote, quote, "The President of the United States is the steward of the White House for future generations of first families. He is not, however, the owner," end quote. The judge ruled, though, that any construction work which is necessary to ensure the safety and security of the White House is exempt from this injunction and can continue. President Trump today railed against the judge in this case, saying he was wrong, that the White House and this area were in disrepair and needed this ballroom, and that no taxpayer dollar was going into this, saying that this ruling does not make any sense. President Trump and his administration then confirmed Tuesday night, very soon after this ruling, that they have appealed this decision.
At Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhorst joining us from D.C. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
And new details are emerging about golf legend Tiger Woods following his arrest after a rollover crash in Florida on Friday. According to an arrest affidavit, Woods appeared lethargic with bloodshot eyes and failed multiple field sobriety exercises at the scene. Deputies say Woods told them he was looking at his phone and changing the road when he didn't notice traffic slowing ahead. Investigators found 2 hydrocodone pills in his pocket and a breath test showed no alcohol, but he refused a urine test. Now he faces DUI-related charges. He was not injured in the crash. Woods has had previous DUI arrests and car accidents. And parents with kids using teen Instagram account can expect to see the PG-13 rating less. The problem with it is the Motion Picture Association owns the trademark to it. Everyone knows what type of content a PG-13 rating indicates, which is what made it attractive to the social media platform. The MPA didn't like it because the group wasn't issuing the rating itself, so it threatened to sue. The resolution to that suit is Instagram will use the rating much less. And when it does, it will include a disclaimer explaining it isn't exactly the same as a movie rating. And there is a deadline approaching that can impact parents who borrowed student loans on behalf of their children. Lauren Mayak explains the changes in repayment options.
For some parents, the cost of their children's college education could soon get more expensive if they don't act soon.
There were a lot of new deadlines that came into play for robust changes to federal student loan borrowing.
I sat down recently with Tamar Hoffman, a staff attorney at Community Legal Services. She says changes are coming for what's known as Parent Plus loans.
Parent Plus loan borrowers are parents who've taken out loans to help their kids go to school. Sometimes parents think that they've co-signed a loan for their child. Often what that really is a Parent Plus loan that they've taken out for their child to go to school.
They're responsible.
That is correct.
Right now, some borrowers are able to get lower payments tied to their income, but changes in legislation known as the Big Beautiful Bill are prompting a nearing deadline, and that option goes away if you don't apply. The government suggests applying by this Wednesday to get through the process by July 1st.
If borrowers do not consolidate by that time, they will lose all access to any kind of income-driven repayment.
That could mean your payments go up. According to a report released last year by the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, about 23% of students whose parents got these loans have family incomes under $20,000. Another 23% have incomes under $40,000, and a similar percentage have higher incomes over $100,000.
Is this the kind of thing that you worry could fly under the radar and people don't realize they need to get this done in a timely manner?
Yes, it definitely, there were so many changes from the One Big Beautiful Bill last year, and this one was definitely flew under the radar.
Karen McCarthy is Vice President for Public Policy and Federal Relations at the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators.
I would definitely encourage anyone to run some numbers, find a calculator online, see, what would my payment be under the income contingent repayment, what would it be under one of the new tiered standard, and then decide, well, what do I think about that?
And it's the countdown to history as a group of American astronauts and one Canadian prepare for a mission around the moon that could set the stage for travel deep into the solar system. Jared Hale has the latest on Artemis 2.
It's a vessel that could catapult mankind toward a new frontier of space exploration.
It's a stepping stone for all the things that we are going to do farther out into our solar system.
Tonight, NASA is planning to launch the Orion capsule on an endeavor known as Artemis 2, first going into low Earth orbit, then toward the moon for a 9-day, 500,000-mile round trip. The capsule looping around the moon's far side, then heading back to Earth to splash down in San Diego.
The opportunity is immense for us to finally get the opportunity to send our crew farther than anyone's gone before.
The first mission, Artemis 1, was an unmanned test flight in 2022. Artemis 2 brings 4 humans on board. NASA astronauts Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Jeremy Hansen. Glover, the pilot, the first black person on a lunar mission. Cook, the first woman.
We have science experiments on board that are going to be looking at our own cells in our body and also on little test kits, so we'll be able to compare that when we get back.
Hopeful spectators ready to witness a moment over 50 years in the making.
When I heard about the first program coming up, I said, I'm going to be there when it launches.
For that to happen, 500 launch criteria need a green light, with safety the top priority. The first 8 minutes of the flight expected to be the most challenging. Jared Hill, CBS News.
And with that, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some more national stories, and we're going to jump into some health stories as well. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back into the Morning Edition Extra. On Monday, the FBI released new information and images on its investigation into the ramming attack on Michigan's largest synagogue. The FBI says on the day of the attack, the assailant sent his sister, who authorities believe lives in Lebanon, videos and messages, quote, affirming his Hezbollah-inspired ideology, end quote. 10 minutes before he drove his truck into the temple, he sent her videos in Arabic indicating he was at the largest gathering of Israelis in Michigan, had booby-trapped his car, and would forcibly enter and start shooting people. Reed Binion reports.
Based on the evidence gathered to date, we assess this attack to be a Hezbollah-inspired act of terrorism, purposely targeting the Jewish community.
The FBI on Monday confirming what had been widely suspected, that the attack on the largest Jewish temple in Michigan earlier this month was an act of terrorism. It happened on March 12th when the assailant rammed a pickup truck into the synagogue as more than 100 children were attending school inside. He hit a security officer before the vehicle got wedged in a hallway. There was an exchange of gunfire with synagogue security officers before the attacker shot and killed himself. The truck caught fire and caused extensive damage to the building. According to the FBI, the vehicle was filled with more than $2,000 worth of commercial-grade fireworks and roughly 35 gallons of gasoline, which investigators say the attacker used to enhance the explosion. The attacker was a naturalized U.S. citizen. Authorities say a week prior to the attack, members of his family in Lebanon, including 2 brothers, were killed in an Israeli airstrike in the war with Iran. The Israeli military said one of his brothers was a Hezbollah commander.
A review of his online activity since January 2026 revealed a reoccurring search history of pro-Hezbollah news channels, Iranian news channels, and videos about shootouts and bullets.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
And on Tuesday, Los Angeles County celebrated Farm Workers Day, previously known as Cesar Chavez Day, as they reflect on their community impact.
Before the sun rises, they're already here.
It's really difficult to do what they do, and they still do it.
Bent over rows of crops, farm workers move with quiet determination, hands weathered, backs aching, pushing through long hours, sometimes in unforgiving conditions.
Bending over all day, extreme weather, and too cold in the morning or too hot around the midday.
Jesus Marmolejo with Marmolejo Farms King Produce says the work is demanding.
Well, you have to move, because you have to, try to get as much as you can. So it is very difficult.
Es todo difícil.
Many, like Germán Sánchez Peredo, are immigrants carrying not just the weight of the harvest, but also the weight of responsibility, of sacrifice, of hope for something better.
El cuerpo se desgasta.
They tell us the work is honest, but it takes a toll, essential, but often invisible. That's why this new designation, Farm Workers Day, feels deeply personal.
So how does it feel to have a day where farm workers are recognized? ¿Cómo se siente tener un día donde los agricultores tienen reconocimiento?
Oh, pues nos sentimos muy contentos.
A recognition not just of labor, but of humanity.
It was overdue. I've been dreaming about this. We deserve that. We need that respect.
The farm workers' rights movement has always been powered by courage, by people willing to endure, to speak out, to demand dignity in the face of injustice.
In California, half are legal residents and half are non-legal residents that come and go. But all of them have the one thing in common. They want to feed their families.
And while this moment honors that legacy, it also shines a light on what hasn't changed.
We should be fighting for wages.
Marmolejo sits on the board of Friends of Field Workers and says they continue to fight for those working in the fields.
We're here to help the farm working community with a bunch of programs.
In every field, every row picked by hand, there's pride. Pride in feeding a nation, pride in work that, despite everything, continues.
The fight is far from over.
Oh no, it's just beginning.
La lucha sigue.
The American Heart Association issued new diet guidance Tuesday. It urges Americans to get more protein from plants instead of meat and choose low-fat or fat-free dairy. It recommends using olive and soybean oils over butter and beef tallow. The group also points to diets rich in beans and lentils as heart healthy. The AHA says its advice, published in the journal Circulation, is based on decades of science. The AHA's new guidance highlights growing disagreements between federal officials and medical groups. Earlier this year, the Department of Health and Human Services released new dietary guidelines featuring an upside-down pyramid with meat, cheese, and vegetables at the top. An HHS spokesperson said it is aligned with the AHA on major issues like avoiding highly processed foods and limiting refined grains and added sugar. And King Charles and Queen Camilla are planning to visit the United States in April. The trip has been rumored for some time, but was confirmed by Buckingham Palace on Tuesday. President Donald Trump extended the invitation to help commemorate the 250th anniversary of American independence. There have been some calls in the United Kingdom for the royals to not make the trip due to the war in Iran. Trump has criticized the British government for not helping in the conflict. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's position is he does not want to get involved in it. And it's that time of year again. As the weather gets warmer, ticks will be out for blood. And since they spread germs that can make people sick, you don't want them on your body. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither talks to an expert about why the 2026 tick season is concerning and ways to protect yourself and your family.
After a significantly severe tick season last year, experts are bracing for another year of this growing threat as familiar trends are being tracked.
We expect this season to be likely worse than last year, or definitely not much better.
Nicole Baumgarth with Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health says last May there was a 30% rise over the previous year in emergency room visits for tick-borne illnesses. She says it's due to a warming climate and expanding tick population. To protect against ticks, Baumgarth says to use bug spray and wear permethrin-treated clothing that covers your skin.
You want to have long-sleeved, long pants, be a little doggy and put your trousers into your socks wear a hat.
After being outdoors, Baumgarth says to do body checks and take a hot shower. She says ticks that haven't attached can easily wash off. And if you do find one on your body, carefully remove it. And she says to place it in a plastic bag in the refrigerator in case you start to develop tick-borne illness symptoms 3 to 30 days after a tick bite. That can include fever, chills, headache, fatigue, muscle and joint aches, and swollen lymph nodes. With Lyme disease, there may also be a rash like this that looks like a target or bullseye. She says Lyme disease transmission from the tick takes about 2 days after it attaches itself.
So you have some time, and that's why it's not recommended to go and see the doctor immediately after you found the tick, particularly if you just came in from a hike or something.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And with that, we're going to take another very short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the James Beard winners and the IMBA Trail Town, the 2026 IMBA Trail Town. We'll also have your Watching Your Wallet for today, and it'll be about separate accounts and what to use them for. So stick with us. We'll have those stories when we return. Welcome back in. A new report from Bankrate finds more than half of American couples keep some of their money separate. In this Watching Your Wallet, consumer investigator Rachel DePompa talks to an expert about how people are making this financial model work for their families.
Only 26% of couples keep their financial accounts completely separate these days. Ted Rossman with Bankrate says it's generational. The boomers are the biggest subscribers to this model. He says only 1 in 4 couples completely separate their finances, mostly Gen Zers. Gen X and millennials are the biggest believers in the yours, mine, and ours financial situation.
I believe there's actually a lot to like about this yours, mine, and ours thing, because You work together on joint financial goals and obligations, but yet you also have some money that's yours and yours alone. That can be a good thing because people don't like the other person looking over their shoulder.
He says it often works well for people because you agree to certain dollar amounts together, but you also have some money left over for buying what you want. He says just make sure it's not a secret and that you keep up the communication.
When it's a secret, that's really a breach of trust. And that can really come back to undermine not just your finances, but even your more emotional kind of relationship. So don't keep secrets, but do talk about these things. If you want to keep some money separate and you and your spouse agree, that can actually be a healthy way to have some independence, but also still be working together on some joint goals and bills.
Rossman says it's not always fun to talk about money, but try your best to take the stigma and judgment out of the conversation. He also says set a timer, make it a quick conversation so you don't dread it. With this watch in your wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
The new crop of finalists for the James Beard Awards was announced Tuesday morning, with Alaska getting 2 spots in the 2026 list. 2 Anchorage nominees moved up to official finalist status in the Best Chef Northwest and Pacific category. Nathan Bentley from Altura Bistro and Fire Island Rustic Bake Shop for Outstanding Bakery. Winners will be announced June 15th at the James Beard Award ceremony held in Chicago. And the trails that crisscross the city of Anchorage have long offered bikers a stunning experience, and the greater mountain biking world is taking notice. Charlie Fellows has a story about the brand new title the city just earned.
Bikers, skiers, and other recreationists come here to Kincaid Park at all times of year to access the robust trail system that stretches across most of the city of Anchorage, making it a deserving recipient for the title of Trail Town.
Anchorage, an official IMBA Trail Town. Cheers!
That title officially bestowed upon the city Tuesday by the International Mountain Bicycling Association in recognition of the length and condition of Anchorage's mountain biking trails.
They have a minimum requirement of 25 miles of trails within a 30-minute drive of town, and we are pushing over 50.
For the city's mountain biking community, the recognition marks the culmination of years of work cataloging and maintaining the citywide network. Members of the community hope it will pay off.
One of our goals is to grow the outdoor recreation economy and to provide tourists an opportunity for one more day in Anchorage, so that when they come to Alaska, they're not just using us as a base camp, but they're actually coming to Anchorage to enjoy what we have.
And it reinforces the mystique that mountain biking in Alaska naturally brings.
We always think of ourselves as a trails town. It's part of our identity. It's what makes living here so special. So it is awesome that the International Mountain Bicycling Association has recognized us with this honor.
I had the chance to bike out to the Knik Glacier a couple times this winter, and it's hard packed, it's riding fast, and when you get out there, you're just in this like fantasy land of ice sculptures, and I was just, my buddy and I were just giggling at every turn we went around. And so the fact that we can get out there, within an hour of home, ride our bikes out 10 miles and go explore these icebergs out in the middle of Alaska you can't do that anywhere else. I mean, that's part of what makes our town so special.
And with potential new additions and revisions coming to this trail network, Anchorage seems set to remain a place where bikers can come to enjoy these trails all year round. Charlie Fellows, Alaska's news source.
And a couple of those potential trail improvements could come via the ballot box, with Propositions 3 and 8 each seeking to allocate money for park facility upgrades. And with that, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to have some fun stories, including a 4-year-old superhero. So we'll check out the story when we return. Welcome back into the Morning Edition Extra. A 4-year-old boy in Massachusetts was the recipient of a milestone wish over the weekend. Jimmy Celaya shows us Super JJ in action, saving the day as a superhero.
JJ, JJ. Today, Make-A-Wish Massachusetts, Rhode Island, celebrating our 11,000th wish, and we're doing it in an extraordinary way. Okay? You're okay. Such a great job.
Thank you, Super JJ.
JJ wanted to be a superhero for a day.
It's not very often that we have superheroes come into town to help us on a case.
We can only do so much. It was really the efforts of Super JJ that really transformed the day's event, and that allowed us to take Triple Z into custody safely.
A love of superheroes really is what brought us here today. Last December, he was unfortunately diagnosed with a medulloblastoma. It has been a very long 15 months of intensive treatment. He's a fighter and he's determined. You can't hold him back, and so just seeing that and letting everyone else see, you know, there's more to his story than just his medical history, and the excitement and joy that he brings every day really was incredible to witness and be a part of.
The Marblehead Police Department is proud to report the successful apprehension of the notorious supervillain Triple Z earlier today. Marblehead is a little safer, a lot brighter, all because of Super JJ.
March 29th was proclaimed Superhero Day in Marblehead, and to honor JJ. To learn more about the work of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, go online to wish.org. And Dairy Queen is hoping for warmer weather, claiming to transport taste buds to sunnier days ahead with their new Blizzard treat collection. Their new Countdown to Summer collection features 3 new flavors, 2 of which are returning fan favorites. The new flavor is the Strawberry Angel Food Cake Blizzard, and the 2 returning are the Cotton Candy and S'mores Blizzards. Available now exclusively on the Dairy Queen app. You can also partake in a buy one, get one for 99 cents, which is a Blizzard digital offer. And Krispy Kreme is celebrating the launch of the Artemis 2 as well with a limited edition donut. The Artemis 2 donut is an original glazed dipped in blue icing, topped with Oreo crunch and white sprinkles, and topped with a cookies and cream flavored dollop. Krispy Kreme has often celebrated NASA's missions with such donuts, from the 1969 Apollo mission all the way to the Perseverance rover landing on Mars in 2021. The limited donut is only available until April 2nd, which is tomorrow. So if you want to get a taste of that, you might want to head on over to a Krispy Kreme as soon as you can. And this one's cute. Are you even alive if you don't think otters playing is one of the cutest things on this planet, though? These 2 adorable little guys were given some balls for some enrichment playtime at the Oregon Zoo in Portland and showed off big time. Having a ball, as the zoo put it, and quite accurately. The balls stimulate their natural reflexes, helping them keep active and engage in natural behaviors that they would otherwise be doing with similar things in an entirely natural environment. Well, definitely think that otters playing is the cutest, one of the cutest things. Look at him. Oh, that little chatter. Oh, they seem to be having a very good time. Not sure if this is boy or girl. Those balls are definitely getting their attention. They are playing with them. They're active. They are using their muscles, their brains. So it's definitely a very enriching activity, it seems like, for these otters. And a border collie named Molly was rescued by helicopter in New Zealand on Tuesday. Molly had been left on her own in a remote area for a week after her owner fell down a waterfall. 3 previous search flights came up empty. A thermal camera helped the rescuers finally spot Molly at the foot of the waterfall where her owner fell. She was rescued in good condition. The owner was seriously injured in her fall, but was released from the hospital in time to welcome back Molly. Well, this seems like a very scary situation, but what a wonderful rescue. Look at that reunion. Both owner and Molly are so happy, and I'm so glad that Molly was able to be rescued, that they took the the time and the resources that it took to return Molly to her owner. And finally, the Postal Service claims mail will be delivered come rain or snow. But I don't think there's a turkey clause anywhere in that traditional guarantee. And in this small town in Wisconsin, turkeys are taking over the street, and Postal Service workers are refusing to go down the road anymore. Residents that live on the street are needing to head to the post office to pick up their mail after the postal carriers have been actually attacked by the turkeys and started to refuse to deliver to that street. The homeowners say they hope the terrorizing turkeys move on soon so they can get back to business as usual. Can you imagine that? Turkeys just attacking your mailman? Isn't that, oh wow. Well, hopefully that these turkeys are able to find a more comfortable living situation to hopefully no longer terrorize these mailmen or mailwomen, these Postal Service members who are just trying to do their job. And that wraps up the Morning Edition Extra for this Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for sticking with us and for watching us and starting off your morning with Alaska's news source. We'll see you again at noon for the latest in news, weather, and more. Have a good day.